Hello, everyone. Dr. Victoria Skirbo here, speaking to you from the Seeds of Transformation Healing Center in Wareham, Massachusetts. As I promised, we'll be doing the astrology of um, the month of November 2020. So let's get started with that. Okay, so, all right, we're going to just look at this. Okay, let's get started. So, as always, November, like every other month in 2020, is chock full of shifts and changes and energies. Um, Things are starting up again. There's a sense of moving forward. In November, there is some um, the last conjunction between Pluto and Jupiter this month. So there's a lot to sort of cover. So we're going to do it um, by weeks. So let's start with the first week. So we're in the first week now. Today is the third, and on the 1st of November, which was a Sunday, we had Mercury make a square to Saturn. Mercury was retrograde at that time, and it occurred at 27 degrees of Libra Capricorn, with Mercury in Libra and Saturn, of course, in Capricorn. Today, Tuesday, November 3rd, Mercury stations direct. Mercury is still at 27 degrees of Libra. And so 27 degrees of Libra, 27 degrees of Capricorn become important. And then on Friday, November 6th, Mercury, now moving forward, makes a square to Saturn at 27 degrees Libra, Capricorn. So what's going on is, from the beginning, from the 1st to the 6th, Saturn has been making this intense last quarter crisis in consciousness square to Mercury. And so we have a opportunity to review the structures in our lives, our relationship to power, our relationship to our own power. And then as Mercury moves direct and makes the square again, and then sort of moves forward at that moment, we can start to feel a freeing, to a certain extent, of our minds. There's this energy of almost feeling like you're in prison. Um, and this wanting to perhaps relate in a new way, Mercury in Libra, but with Saturn sort of holding us back. There's something from the past that hasn't quite been let go of yet. So let's take a look at the Sabian symbols for these degrees. So the Sabian symbol for 27 degrees of Libra, and this is the Sabian symbol for Mercury, as it squares Saturn and also as it stations direct. So this is an important, whenever a planet changes direction, whether it be Mercury or Pluto or Saturn, it takes a couple of days for it to actually change and shift. So it's almost as if it slows down. And of course, it doesn't really slow down. Retrograde motion is apparent. All planets move direct at all times. It's just from our perspective on planet Earth that we see as if it's moving backwards. As if you've ever been on the subway or on the train or the T in the case of Massachusetts, you can have two trains right next to each other. But if one train is going faster than the other train looks like it's moving backwards, when in fact it's not moving backwards. It's just moving backwards relative, because the train you may be in is moving faster. And that's how retrograde motion works. And that's why the planets further out in the zodiac that move very slowly have long periods of retrograde. I think Pluto has at least 4.5 months of retrograde. 5 or 4, it's between 4 and 5. I don't exactly remember. will have a retrograde. It will look like it. Well, we can't see Pluto actually, so it's probably a bad example. But Jupiter, Jupiter has a retrograde cycle of a couple of months, and we can actually see that. And when planets are retrograde, they're actually closer to Earth. So things seem brighter in the sky. One of the reasons why, when you look out at the sky at night and you see Mars just so bright and so red and so big, is because Mars is retrograde and it's closest to the Earth. When Mars is not retrograde and it's out there, it's actually kind of dim. It's kind of dim. It doesn't look like it does now. So when you look up in the sky and you see Mars, and you know it's Mars because it's the reddest, biggest thing up there, um, you know that this is an opportunity. And of course, Mars being in Aries makes it especially um, powerful because Mars is the ruling planet of Aries. And so this really is in a way, new beginning as we move forward once Mars goes direct. All right, let's go. Let's go. I skipped ahead. Let's go back to this. So the Sabian symbol for 27 degrees of Libra, an airplane sails high in the clear sky. The consciousness, a consciousness able to transcend the conflicts and pressures of the personal life. This picture symbolizes the capacity latent in every individual to contemplate the stresses of existence in our world of duality from a higher level. Though the use of his mind, backed off by the efforts and struggles of past generations and the cooperation of other men, the individual can gain a new perspective on human problems and reach freedom and peace in the supernal realm of being. So the supernal realm means the higher realms. The symbol introduces us to the realm of unity beyond polarity. And so on some level, this 27 degrees of Libra, where Mercury is stationing and squaring Saturn, this symbol asks us to look beyond the duality of life and raise yourself up to a higher perspective, And of course, when Mercury is retrograde, answers come from within. And when we look within and we're introspective, what we're actually connecting to is our own spirit. And our spirit is connected to the spirit of all things. And so in the nature of introspection comes a connection to spirit that could be very helpful at this time. So let's see what 27 degrees of Capricorn is, because this is another potent um, energy. Pilgrims climb the steps leading to a mountain shrine. The ascent of the individualized consciousness to the highest realization reached by the spiritual leaders of its culture. So this is dealing with the ability to move up the spiritual sort of ladder, as it were, as high as those who are in charge of um, the spiritual, churches and just these spiritual leaders in whatever culture we're dealing with. The other was it Sunday? I was watching. I think it was on YouTube actually. There was a service, and they had all these different and it was at the cathedral, and it was so that they were praying for America, that we would choose democracy and that democracy would flourish. And they had all these really great speakers from all different religions speaking. It was really quite profound and quite inspiring. And I'm not particularly connected to any um, technical like church, right? But they all, every religion has a base in truth, and they were speaking the truth. And so we can see that you can reach some pretty high heights even if you're within a certain religion, right? So it says, we hear a great deal about peak experiences, but this symbol tells us they depend on a very great extent upon following a path many have trodden before under the inspiration of the great teachers and sages of our race. The shrine is built by the unceasing dedication of perhaps generations of men, The pilgrimage is hallowed by the devotion of many, even though each person finds their own mountaintop. What they seem, what to them seems unique and a transcendent revelation. The key word here is upreaching. And so both of these symbols require us to look beyond what is right in front of us, really, and sort of uh, walk in the steps of the sages and the teachers to get the perspective of what is, I think, what is at stake at this time. What is at stake at this time? So that's pretty much the first week is this Saturn and Mercury story. And it requires us to look at life from a much higher perspective than perhaps we normally would. It's a broader perspective, it's a bigger perspective. And we can, we can rely to a certain extent on those who have come before, that have walked the path of the pilgrim, right? We're all kind of pilgrims in a way. All right, let's look at the second week. So the second week goes from the 8th to the 14th. And the second week is going to be very active. There's a lot of changes, shifting energies. We're going to actually feel the Mercury retrograde we're coming out. So Mercury is starting to move forward. It's going to be coming out of that square to Saturn. We're still going to feel that square to Saturn, but we are making progress because this square, crisis in consciousness, is sort of having our voice heard as we move forward through the month. Okay, so on Sunday, the 8th, we have a last quarter moon. This is part of the lunation cycle that began with last month with the new moon in Libra. We just had the full moon a couple of days ago, right at the end of October, with Uranus conjunct the moon. And that was a Taurus full moon. But previous to that, the new moon was actually in Libra. And it was at, I think, 24 degrees of Libra. And that was very powerful. It was a very powerful moon because it made a square to Pluto and it made a square to Jupiter and a little wider square to Saturn. There was all kinds of things. And it was opposite Mars. It was opposite Mars. So there was a cardinal T square in the sky for that new moon. And so we're still in that lunation cycle. We're still living that lunation cycle. And this is the point where we start to question authority. This is the point where we start to individuate. And so we can look here and see this. We have the sun at 16, 30, it looks like 38 or 36. I can't, it's too small for me to read actually. You round it out, it's actually 17 degrees of Scorpio. And we have the moon at 17 degrees of Leo. And so the moon is moving closer to the sun. It's the last quarter, 3/4 of the way around. Scorpio and Leo is very passionate combination, very passionate. Leo is love, Scorpio is passion and desire. And so we have a great desire at this time to break free. We have a great desire to individuate, to no longer, to break away from the traditional ways of looking at things. And we're dealing with fixed signs. Fixed signs always bring up our emotions. So the second week, we start with our emotions being quite high, as it were. And let's see what else is going on here. What's interesting is the planet, the asteroid Juno is conjunct the sun. Very, very close. Looks like it's only a couple of minutes apart. Juno, it was the goddess, the queen of heaven, right? She was Hera in the Greek pantheon. And so she had her own power. She was very powerful. She did have to share power with, in the case of Hera, Zeus, or in the case of Juno, Jupiter. But she was kind of the consort. She was the ballast for and in ways sort of controlled Zeus's actions as best she could, really. But it's always very prominently placed in the charts of women who are in power. Okay, so we have this sort of sacred feminine energy. We also have a opposition in this chart between Mercury and Venus. Not Mercury, Venus, Mars and Venus. Venus is in Libra. Libra is a sign that is ruled by Venus. Mars is in Aries. Mars is a sign, Aries is a sign that's ruled by Mars, but it is retrograde. So if anybody has the upper hand here, it's Venus. Okay. But oppositions make us look at things very clearly. Now, the exact opposition um, is coming up later, later in this week, but we have this energy already. So it's like there's a lot of energy for opposition. There's a lot of oppositional energy, but it could also be cooperative energy. It doesn't have to necessarily be oppositional, but the polarity, and we're in a very polarized time. So it's going to seem like it increases. I think the longer, especially here in the US, the longer we have to wait to hear who's won, the more of that tension is going to continue to sort of uptick. We're going to have an uptick in tension. On November 9th, we have, okay, so the next day, we have Venus opposite Mars retrograde. It's at 16 degrees of Libra in Aries, and we can see that right here. This is a chart for the United States, because is it? Yes, it's erected to Washington, D.C. And so this opposition is in the ninth and the third houses. The ninth and the third houses are it's the mental axis. It's how we think. It has to do with our lower mind and our higher mind. And so this is sort of a war of, maybe a war of the sexes, but a war of the mind here. So we have that. So that's important, because the opposition between two planets is the halfway point of their synodic cycle. The synodic cycle is the cycle between a conjunction to the next conjunction. And we did have a conjunction back in 2019. It was in August 24th of 2019. Venus and Mars made a conjunction at 5 degrees of Virgo. Since then, both Venus and Mars have had a retrograde. In fact, Mars is still retrograde at this point. So it's taken a long time. It's a 2-year cycle. It's taken a long time to get this far. Once Mars goes direct and the opposition is made, then Mars goes direct. And then it will move into the next cycle rather quickly, because there's no retrograde for either one of the planets. But there's been a lot of work on figuring out how best to relate to one another. It's in Virgo, right? Virgo is about fixing what's broken. I believe the last Venus-Mars conjunction, which would have occurred in, if this was 2018, so 2016, was also in Virgo. I believe the next one is in Leo, so it does change. So it's less about fixing what's broken and more about loving one another. But we're still in this fixing what's broken kind of thing. So the Sabian symbol for 5 degrees of Virgo, when this particular synodic cycle began, was a man becoming aware of nature spirits and normally unseen spiritual agencies, an opening of new levels of consciousness. So this was an opportunity for us. Again, there's all of this talk about new levels of consciousness, being high in the sky and going up the mountaintop, all of this, so we can have a perspective. Because what's actually happening, folks, is that we are up-leveling our vibration. And when you up-level your vibration, the old stuff falls away. The things that no longer serve us, the people who no longer need to be in our life fall away. And so whatever you're losing at this time is nothing that you need. So the Sabian symbols for the opposition here, we have 16 degrees of Libra. This is the Venus. It says, after a storm, a boat landing stands in need of reconstruction. The need to keep in operation steady links between the vast unconscious and the ego consciousness. So the vast unconscious would be the sea. The ego consciousness would be the boat. We are all sort of in our own little boats on the great cosmic sea, are we not? And the key word here is repair. And so this is a call to repair our relationships, but not just our relationship with other people, but our relationship with our own spiritual self, with our own um, understanding that your ego is simply a construct that's part of this great sea. And while you're separate now, because you're in your boat, your ego boat, or your body boat, so to speak, you will have a time when you return back to the great cosmic sea. This is opposing and bringing awareness to the Sabian symbol for 16 degrees of Aries. Nature spirits are seen at work in the light of the sunset. Attunement to the potency of invisible forces of nature, repotentialization. So we can repair and we can heal through our connection to nature. So this is really a connection of earth and sky, the feminine earth, the masculine sky, Mother Earth, Father Sky. This is what this opposition is calling forth for us. November 10th, on a Tuesday, Mercury will ingress back into Scorpio. It is moving direct now. It is still in its shadow. It'll be in its shadow for quite a while. At the same time, on that day, we have a trine between Neptune and the Sun. This is a trine of understanding. It has the energy of Sagittarius. And Neptune is connection to Source. So we have an opportunity to share our relationship to Source. We have an opportunity to share with one another what we have learned, and an opportunity to, of course, connect with Source itself. So this is a little bit of in a way, respite between, but all this other stuff is still going on in the background. But we do have opportunities in the second week to move forward and to connect with spirit. So the angels and the guides and the spirits are around us every moment. We just need to connect and ask for help, and they're here to help us. November 11th, Wednesday, Venus makes an inconjunct to Neptune. This is emotional adjustments are needed within our relationship to others and our relationship to the world. Venus and Neptune, Venus is what you value, and Neptune is very idealistic, but it can also be illusions and delusions. And so we can delude ourselves at this point, and we can try to take those delusional visions that we have and share them out into the world. The world will not accept that. The world doesn't want delusions. And it may not even want the inspirations that you have to offer. And it's not that the inspirations you have to offer aren't worthy and worth sharing. It just means that you have to find a language that people can understand. So if you're talking a different language and they don't know what you're saying, they're going to ignore you. So you have to find words that will actually work for them. Okay. On the 12th of November, we have a conjunction, the last of three, of Jupiter and Pluto. This is occurring at 23 degrees of Capricorn. What's important about this, the 23rd degree of Capricorn, which this was the degree of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction at the beginning of the year, the 12th of January, 2020. So this is sort of bringing us back to that. Now, many people believe that that conjunction, they would call it the COVID conjunction, as it were. And every time these two planets, Jupiter and Pluto, came together. There was a spike in COVID cases, and certainly here in America, we're in a real pickle, because because those in charge are not taking things seriously. Those who have the power to make the change are not taking it seriously. There are plenty of scientists and doctors and nurses and people taking it seriously. Um, but this is disastrous, quite frankly. And so we can expect another giant COVID wave. So be prepared for that. We're actually in the middle of it, and it's just going to get bigger through this period. And that also sort of raises up the emotions, right? The emotions. So the Sabian symbol for 23 degrees of Capricorn, a soldier receiving 2 awards for bravery in combat, the reward offered by society for the fulfillment of individual responsibility, recompense. So if you're responsible, if you walk through life knowing that you're not just affecting yourself, but you're affecting everyone around you, then you're in better stead with this. And here we have this conjunction. And what's interesting about this conjunction is that it's within a minute of a conjunction to Pallas Athena. So Pallas Athena, the government, right, the government workers, um, they are taking things seriously. But we have the energy of Pallas Athena, and everything is moving direct. So we will actually probably get help, um, or it will start to move in that direction. We'll start to feel like we certainly need it, and we're going to start to feel like we have it. But this is a very potent time. And of course, Pluto is the planet of death, and Jupiter is expansion. And so that's why everything is so very big and so very worldwide with this energy. But this is the last of the three in 2020. The first one happened in March. The second one, I think it was June or July. It was June. And now this one in November. And then what's going to happen is both Jupiter is going to move into Aquarius, as is Saturn. And we'll talk about that next month. Okay, so let's see. On the 13th of November, which is Friday the 13th, Mars finally stations direct at 16 degrees of Aries. The Sabian symbol for 16 degrees of Aries, again, is nature spirits are seen at work in the light of sunset. This is for all intents and purposes, Mars has sort of been standing still, because at the beginning of the week it opposed Venus, right? And now Venus has passed, and is moving on. And now Mars actually gets to move on. So we're going to start to feel like things are moving at this time, and we may find out a little bit more in America about what's up with stuff. Okay. So where are we here? So this is actually happening in the 10th house in the chart for the United States. So the 10th house is the house of the president and the house of the leader. So I think we're going to see some forward motion in that. And what exactly that means, I can't say. I don't think I dare say. We do have an opposition of the moon here to Uranus. So it's not exact when this happens, but this indicates the nature or the position of the people. The people are ready for change. They're ready for change. And so this is going to be quite a tumultuous week, and to a certain extent a dangerous week. So be careful out there, guys. Be careful out there. If you're going to protest, and there'll be many people protesting, I think, just keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes open. Okay, so November 14th, Saturday, we have the sun make a sextile to Pluto and to Jupiter. Now they just made a conjunction, Jupiter and Pluto. So Saturday we have so that was what, 2 days ago. So Saturday we have the sun make a sextile. This is a 300-degree progressive sextile. This is about working for the common good. And so it is a little different, even though, so we have the sun here making a sextile to, where is it, to Jupiter. Is it Jupiter? Yeah, sun sextile Jupiter, with the Aries rising here. Sun sextile Jupiter. Jupiter is the expansion. The sun is illumination. Jupiter in Capricorn, we're becoming aware of our limitations. We become aware of our limitations. Just how far, I don't want to say just how bad things are, because that's not really what I want to say. That's not really true. But kind of understanding where we're at and what it's going to take for us to work together to change things and make things better. And then we have the sun. Oh, did I say Jupiter? That was Pluto. I'm sorry, that was Pluto. So this is about understanding our new relationship to power, and this is power to the people. So that's actually good news, right? Power to the people. And then the sun sextile Jupiter. Later in the day, it's we have the sun here, and the sun is almost ready to make a conjunction here, right, to the moon. I just want to make sure I have the right one here. Yep. So we're just about ready to have a new moon the next day. I think we're having the new moon the next day. So it's the sun and the moon in a sextile to Jupiter, and this fourth house, sixth house looks to me like it has more to do with COVID, and this could actually be an explosion, and the healthcare system gets really, really stressed, and we're going to have to work with each other for the benefit of all. So we're all going to have to pitch in with that energy. Okay, so let's go to week 3. So the third week of November is a lot, or much quieter than the second week of November. We're going to be reverberating. This second week of November is really well, the first week is a doozy too, right? Second week's a doozier. That's such a word. And this third week, things sort of calm down a bit. So on the 15th, which is a Sunday, we have a new moon at 24 degrees of Scorpio. So having heard, and so this is the Sabian Simple, having heard an inspired individual deliver his Sermon on the Mount, crowds return home. The keynote here is the need to incorporate inspiring experiences and teachings into everyday living. Keyword: challenge to transformation. And so the week before, we really have a good look of what needs to change. We know what needs to change. And so this new moon in Scorpio sort of uh, there's a word. Oh my goodness, what's the word? It's like it makes it into law, but there's a word. Codifies, almost codifies this need for change and transformation. We also have on the same day a Venus squaring Pluto at 23 degrees of Libra Capricorn. And when we look at the new moon, we'll see this. Okay, so here's the new moon. This is for Washington, D.C. Apologies to people who live elsewhere. But we can see that we have this new moon at 24 degrees of 2317. We just rounded it off. And it's in the third house. The third house is the media, it's communication. Okay, this could be a new relationship with media or how we communicate. It is, of course, sextile Jupiter, sextile Pallas Athena, sextile Pluto. These are all very powerful sextiles. And when you're looking at the sun and the moon in relation to these planets, these are, the sun is moving towards these planets. So this is really about progressive change. This is an opportunity for us to plant the seeds of progressive change. If we look here, we can still see that Mercury is still with an orb of an opposition to Uranus, Uranus being our higher mind, Mercury being our lower mind. And so this is also sort of inspirational energies here, inspirational energies. And this COVID, or the COVID clump, or this giant Capricorn cluster in the fifth house brings up the youth, right? The youth. It also is the house of love and the house of creativity. So we do have an opportunity to sort of recreate our world. And there's a lot of energy for that. There's a lot of energy for that. But we have to come from a place where we're willing to look at ourselves and take responsibility for our part in whatever is going on. We can't keep blaming it on other people. All right, we can't keep doing that. Okay. On Monday, Venus squares Jupiter. Now, the day before, Venus squared Pluto, right? I said I would show that, but I did not. Venus squares Pluto. These squares of Venus to Pluto and Jupiter, and then ultimately Saturn, are last quarter crisis and consciousness squares, right? So this is about change. This is about working towards the common good. This is about the process of individuation. And Venus is our values and what's important to us. And Venus is the divine feminine. And so the divine feminine definitely has something to say. Through this whole period, the planet Eris, which was just discovered back, I think, in 2003, has been squaring Pluto and Saturn and Jupiter from Aries. Eris and Aries. Eris has been in Aries since 1925. She is a warrior goddess and a revolutionary. So she is not letting the powers that be get away with what they've gotten away with before. And even though we had the new structure of power happened in Capricorn, it happened under a square to Eris. So Eris is not going to let us go back to the past. Not going to happen. Okay. On Tuesday, Mercury opposes Uranus. Remember, I showed you in the chart that Mercury and Uranus were close to opposition. This is the third of three oppositions occurring at 8 degrees of Scorpio, 8 degrees of Taurus, with Mercury being in Scorpio and Uranus being in Taurus. And then on Thursday, the Sun makes a sextile to Saturn. This is an opportunity for progressive change. So we can start to feel that there a lot of the tension and that like holding our breath that we've been going through is starting to release, and we're starting to sort of move in the direction that we want to see progress. We want to see working towards the common good. And I think what we have to be aware of is that no matter what's being said in the media about Trump and Biden and is it or isn't it, or what's going to happen, or they're going to try to sue, all these shenanigans that are going to happen, progress is moving forward. So they may not be caught up to the energy that's actually out there. So don't forget that no matter what is going on in the outer world, it's up to you to make the changes in your world so that you can move forward in a way based on your new values, your Venus retrograde, Mars retrograde. How do we have to, review our values, review the way we go about getting things done, and all that. So we've had a lot, and of course a lot of us are in quarantine. So we've had a lot of time to just ponder things, whether we wanted to or not. So we've had the time, and now the energy starts starts to move forward. And we have to remember that we are in an 11 vibration this month, right? It's the 11th month. And so we have to try to stay balanced between the extremes. And we're in a 15-6 vibration if we take the month and the year and add it together. So we're talking about responsibility. It's a Capricorn vibration. So everything that's happening to these Capricorn planets is especially important. And mostly what's happening to the Capricorn planets is that we're questioning authority. We're questioning authority, and we're deciding to move along and individuate based on our experience and our knowledge. And hopefully we're in better stead because of that. On Thursday as well, we have Venus square Saturn, and that's the last of the Venus squaring the planets in Capricorn, and so she will move on. So there's this, you know, what are my values? Do they line up with societies or traditional values, or is it time to change? Is it time for us to change? What is your relationship to power? Is your feminine side powerful? What do you need to do to make it more powerful? Or uh, whatever. Say more powerful. All right. On November 21st, Venus ingresses into Scorpio, and the sun ingresses in Sagittarius on the same day. So at the end of this week, we start to see a shift. We also have a first quarter square of the sun and the moon. And so we had the new moon, right? We had the new moon in Scorpio. So at the end of week 3 on a Saturday, there's a crisis in action. And with the sun in Sag and the moon in Pisces, there's a humanitarian energy. There's a spiritual energy connected to this. So we can see us attending to perhaps our spiritual needs. And this is the sun ingressing into Sag. There it is, right there. And where's Venus? Venus here has just entered into Scorpio. So that's and then we always look at, or I always look at the ruling planet of whatever sign the sun moves into, and in this case it would be Jupiter. And we can see, of course, Jupiter is in the middle of all of this Capricorn stuff. Still, let's see, it's still, let's see, is it square anything anymore? No, it's not really. Well, kind of wide on that, but they're sort of sitting by themselves. The sort of the energy of the squares has started to recede, right? Has started to recede, and we move forward. So week 4, on Sunday, the 22nd, Mercury is in conjunct Mars in Scorpio and Aries. Mars. Mercury is what you think. Mars is what you do. Mars is just starting to feel like it's moving forward again. This could be challenges in our ability to communicate. It's easy to miss the mark. I almost feel like we're stumbling forward here with this energy. On Monday, we have Mercury trine Neptune. Remember, we had the sun trine Neptune. Now Mercury has an opportunity to trine Neptune. This is a great day to connect with spirit. On Tuesday, the 24th, the sun and the moon trine each other at 4 degrees of Sag and Aries. This is a creative, self-expressive trine. And so while Sunday is a little bit dicey, the next couple of days, perhaps we can soothe the savage beast within us, or soothe the savage beast within others in our connection to source and spirit. On the 27th, which is a Friday, we have Mercury sextile Pluto at 24 degrees of Scorpio Capricorn. We also have Venus making an opposition to Uranus. The Mercury sextile Pluto is when Mercury gets to the point in its relationship to Pluto, where we're moving and have the opportunity to move in a more progressive direction. And so this is speaking truth to power, and perhaps power will actually listen now. The Venus opposite Uranus is the halfway point of the Venus-Uranus synodic cycle that began back on March 8th, 2020 at 5 degrees of Taurus. March 8th was about the time when we realized what a pickle we were in with COVID, or those of us paying attention. The Sabian symbol for 5 degrees of Taurus is a widow at an open grave. The impermanence of all material and social bonds. The key word here is disregarding the past. And so to a certain extent, that conjunction that occurred back in March sort of seeded that idea of letting go of the past. And that perhaps, symbolically at least, with this Sabian symbol, that we would be spending an inordinate amount of time standing, mourning what we've lost, The opposition, of course, is at 8 degrees. So we have 8 degrees of Scorpio, which is where Venus is at, a calm lake bathed in the moonlight, a quiet openness to higher inspiration. And the key word here is quiescence. The Uranus at 8 degrees of Taurus, a sleigh on land uncovered by snow. So there's a sleigh on land where there's no snow, right? The keynote is the value of anticipating and preparing for expected conditions, future-oriented imagination. And so this to me looks like a real realization of just how foolish people have been. And now we move from that awareness into a new awareness, perhaps. And so we move forward through this cycle and into next year with our eyes wide open, better informed, and awake to the reality of the situation that we find ourselves in. Okay, November 28th, Neptune, the planet of deception, stations direct at 19 degrees of Pisces. It has been retrograde for quite a while now. The Sabian symbol for 19 degrees of Pisces is a master instructing his disciples. The transfer of power and knowledge which keeps the original spiritual and creative impulse of the cycle active and undeviated. Investiture. So this is talking about our investiture, or our investment that we take on our spiritual journey. If you have been doing your due diligence when it comes to your spiritual journey, whatever that means for you, for some people it means praying, for some people it means walking in nature, for some people it means doing yoga, going on vision quests, whatever your spiritual discipline is, if you've been applying, this is when we see sort of it's moving direct now. So before it was retrograde, it was more internal work. And now it's as if spirit gets to express itself in the outer world a little bit more. We also have Mercury sextiling Jupiter. Remember, Mercury just sextiled Pluto. It'll sextile Jupiter. It'll sextile Saturn. This is all about progressive change and moving forward. This synodic cycle actually began on January 2nd. Jupiter and Mercury are the two planets associated with the way that we understand our mind. They're both, Jupiter is our intuitive sense, and Mercury is our reasoning mind. And so the cycle between them is how we're learning. And it began back on January 2nd at 8 degrees of Capricorn. And here we have a sleigh on land uncovered by snow, the same degree as we talked about before, the value of anticipating and preparing for expected conditions. And so we can take our experiences and utilize them as we move forward into the future. week 5, which is actually just 2 days. So on November 29th, which is a Sunday, we have the sun in conjunct Uranus. Emotional adjustments needed as information from higher realms is distributed to the people. This cycle began back on April 26, 2020, when the sun conjoined Uranus at 7 degrees of Taurus. So the sun-Uranus cycle is about illumination of what our higher mind, it's higher vibrational stuff. It's illumination, it's awakening. So we're awakened. And we come to this point where we're awakened, but how do we share that, our awakening, with others? And this is the challenge. If you're too emotionally connected to your own message and not being willing to share it and be open to what other people have to say about it in society, then your message isn't going to get out there. So we need to be sort of detached from our attachments to how it has to happen or how it has to be done. The cycle began back at 7 degrees of Taurus. It says the woman of Samaria at an ancestral well, the meaning of the traditional past and the creative spirit pointing to the future, a new quality of being. And this is really talking, we talk about the structures coming down, the structures coming down. Sure, they're coming down, but not all the structures are. Some will stand. Those that still have an ability to support us will stand, and we have to build upon them. And it'll be interesting to see, because we don't know what's going to happen with the United States election yet, as I sit here, how that manifests itself. And then on the 30th of November, we have a full moon in Gemini. This is a lunar eclipse. The 9 degrees of Gemini, which is the moon, is a quiver filled with arrows. Man's aggressive relationship to natural life as a basis for survival and conquest. And the key word here is conquest, in opposition to a mother leads her small child step by step up a steep staircase. The need in any social situation to assist the less evolved in their management of the problems which society requires its members to solve. Keyword here is social conquest. Full moons are points of awareness where we often see opposites. And these two symbols are definitely opposite. Somewhere in the middle is the right place for us. And here we have the full moon in Gemini. We have the sun here at 7 degrees of Gemini. We have the moon. Oh, did I say 7? 9. 9 degrees, 9 degrees. I can't really see. It should be 9 degrees. Yes, it is. I got to get new glasses, guys. Sorry about that. Yeah, it is actually square Ceres in Pisces. Ceres is an asteroid goddess. She's the goddess of the grain. She's a nurturer. She's a mother nature, but she's also about grief. And so I think that this full moon will help us to open up to the sorrow that we feel, that needs to be expressed, that needs to be released, so that we can heal, So, all right. So that's that. And I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found that helpful. It was a little long, as it always is once I start going. So like and subscribe. If you would like to have a reading with me, you can do that. There are links below. If you would like to take one of my beginners classes, I'm starting beginners classes again in January. I have 2 tentative dates, the 7th, which I think is a Thursday. I do them from 7 to 9 p.m. Actually, that's not beginners. That's my more intermediate. Well, it's still beginners. We're going to be talking about the nodes of the moon and such, a little bit past the basics. So if you have the basics down and you'd like to join us, you certainly can. It's a 6-week course. It's $120 for the 6 weeks. So it's very, very reasonable. And we gather on consecutive, in this case, Thursday, I'm also having a Saturday class with the same, that's on the 9th, that starts on the 9th. So if you can't do during the week and you can do a Saturday, and the Saturday is from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. So you should be able to fit yourself in. But that is only for people who have signs, planets, houses, and more or less the aspects, which are always the most difficult to master anyway. But if you have that, you can join us. But I am going to also have a Kabbalah, a beginner's Kabbalah class, and a new beginners, like complete beginners astrology class. I just do not have dates on that yet. So, but I'll announce it. You guys will know. I'll make sure I say something. All right, guys. Namaste. Please, please, please stay safe this month. Um, Utilize your intuition. If it feels a little dicey, then don't do it. Like as you say, oh, I have to go to the grocery store. Oh, but I don't really feel like it. I just follow, of course, if you're starving, I guess you have to go. But beyond that, listen to your intuition. Listen to your intuition. This is a very, very challenging time. I'm not going to blow sunshine up your butt because it's not my thing. But we do have a lot of opportunities to start planning for the future and making the changes that we need, because 2021 is just around the corner and everything is going to be different. Take care. Love you all.